In today's video, we're diving into 11 incredible facts about the making of Arrival, revealing the creative magic that made this film a modern sci-fi classic. Stick around, you won't want to miss these. In pre-production for Arrival, director Denis Villeneuve and screenwriter Eric Heisserer took on the ambitious task of creating an entire language for the alien Heptapods. Working closely with their creative team, they developed a logogram Bible containing over 100 unique linguistic symbols. From these, 71 logograms made it into the final cut of the film, each one helping to build the mysterious and profound communication system that is central to the movie's narrative. When Ted Chiang's short story, Story of Your Life, was first published, many considered it unfilmable. It spent years languishing in development as production companies hesitated to take on such a complex narrative. Even after a production company finally took a chance, it took several more years to refine the script enough for a studio to greenlight the project. When Arrival finally hit the big screen, Chiang was impressed. He praised it as both a great adaptation and a great all-round movie. In the original ending of Arrival, the Heptapods gifted humanity with various futuristic technologies. Each country received a unique item. America was set to get a faster-than-light spaceship, while China would receive a high-tech life support machine. Additionally, the aliens planned to leave behind blueprints for an interstellar ship. However, after the release of Interstellar, the producers felt their ending was too similar to Christopher Nolan's epic and opted for a different conclusion instead. Director Denis Villeneuve and cinematographer Bradford Young envisioned the visual style of Arrival as dirty sci-fi. Villeneuve described the mood he aimed for as a bad Tuesday morning, like when you were a kid on the school bus on a rainy day and you'd dream while looking out the window at the clouds. In an interview with the Los Angeles Times, Young also mentioned Villeneuve's intent to avoid the symmetry and polished look typical of many sci-fi films. Instead, they sought something grittier and more organic. Young drew inspiration from Swedish photographer Martina Höglund Ivano's exhibition Speedway, which featured evocative, soft, and dark lighting centered on speedway drivers and their surroundings. This influence is evident in the visuals of the Heptapods ship, mysterious and almost opaque, and in the painterly, naturalistic style used for the scene where Louise gains the ability to perceive time cyclically. The approach by Villeneuve and Young paid off remarkably well, as the film's restrained yet otherworldly cinematography earned widespread acclaim, including an Oscar nomination for Young's work. Adapting a book to film is always a delicate process. Nailing the essence of the story can mean earning the author's approval, while mishandling it could lead to a reluctance for future adaptations. Luckily, Arrival avoided the pitfalls that often plague such adaptations. Author Ted Chiang was ultimately impressed by Denis Villeneuve's work. He acknowledged that, although the film was somewhat lighter on the original story's scientific depth, it successfully captured the emotional core and stood out as an artistic achievement in its own right. Chiang has expressed uncertainty about which of his other stories might make good films, but there's hope that any future adaptation will at least live up to the quality of Arrival. When done well, foreshadowing can be a powerful tool to build narrative tension and make the story's climax all the more rewarding. Arrival uses this storytelling device masterfully, right from an early scene involving physicist Ian Donnelly, Jeremy Renner. As Donnelly and Louise Banks, Amy Adams, travel to the Heptapods landing site, Donnelly quotes from his colleague's acclaimed linguistics book, "Language is the foundation of civilization. It is the glue that holds a people together. It is the first weapon drawn in a conflict." At first glance, especially for those unfamiliar with the original book, this line might seem to simply emphasize Louise's high regard for language. However, as the story unfolds, particularly toward the end of the second act, it becomes clear that language plays a far more pivotal role in the film than initially expected. The alien beings at the center of Arrival were initially envisioned quite differently from their final form. In Ted Chiang's original story, the Heptapods were described as barrel-shaped, and this design was initially considered before Denis Villeneuve and the production team chose the cephalopod-like appearance that ultimately made it to the screen. However, the inspirations behind how the aliens moved and were perceived came from an eclectic mix of sources, including the animal kingdom and mythology. Creatures like elephants, whales, spiders, and even the Grim Reaper all played a part in shaping the heptapods' movements and behavior, especially their sense of otherworldly intelligence and eerie presence. Some early designs leaned even further into the surreal, emphasizing that these beings were genuinely alien. Drawing from such diverse influences allowed the filmmakers to craft an alien species that felt both vaguely familiar yet distinctly unlike anything on Earth, capturing that perfect balance between the recognizable. When Hollywood films are released internationally, certain elements are often altered to better resonate with specific audiences. Sometimes these changes are well received, like Steve Rogers' to-do list in The Winter Soldier renewal, while others are more contentious, such as the frequent erasure of LGBTQ representation in major blockbusters. Arrival made a unique adaptation for its Italian release that added a cultural twist without compromising the story. In the original version, the heptapods are named Abbott and Costello, and Sheena Easton's music was referenced as peaking at the 12 landing sites during the 80s. For the Italian dub, these references were changed to Tom and Jerry and Pink Floyd, respectively. This switch was made because Abbott and Costello and Sheena Easton are not as widely known in Italy as the iconic cartoon duo and the legendary British rock band. Costume design in film often goes beyond simply defining a character's style. It can reflect their emotional state, provide insight into their world, or even hold deeper symbolic meaning. Sometimes, these choices are more subtle than iconic sunglasses and trench coats, or a recognizable fedora. Even seemingly minor costume pieces can carry significant weight for the story, though their importance might not be immediately apparent. Take Louise's earring in Arrival's climactic flash-forward. The earring bears a resemblance to a nautilus shell. As the name suggests, a nautilus shell is the protective casing of a cephalopod, known for its nearly perfect logarithmic spiral. The shape of the earring could be seen as a nod to the Heptapods' cephalopod-inspired design, as well as to the Fibonacci sequence, which Ian Donnelly, Jeremy Renner, briefly mentions earlier in the film. This mathematical principle, often represented by a spiral resembling a nautilus shell, reinforces the earring as a subtle symbol for the cyclical nature of the film's narrative. Arrival is far from your typical bombastic sci-fi action film. It takes a more measured approach, avoiding over-the-top action and striving for a sense of realism. While it does take some creative liberties with linguistic theories, the story generally adheres to established scientific principles. Albert Einstein's work is subtly referenced in the book that inspired the film. He once remarked, "The distinction between the past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion." Essentially, Einstein suggested that our concept of time is a human construct, and that reality isn't as linear as we often imagine. This idea is central to both the book and the film, and is reflected in the heptapods' unique perception of time. The bookended structure and nonlinear narrative of Arrival might lead some to consider it a filmic palindrome. While this isn't entirely accurate in terms of its structure, certain elements of the film do embody the concept of a palindrome. For instance, after the main events of the story, Louise and Ian have a daughter named Hannah, a name that itself is a palindrome. This choice is fitting, as Hannah's most pivotal moments, her birth and death, occur at the bookends of the film. The heptapods' language also has a palindromic quality, at least visually. Represented as logograms, Louise and the other experts note that the language conveys meaning without sound and, crucially, reflects the heptapods' non-linear perception of time. On a musical level, Max Richter's On the Nature of Daylight features a violin arrangement that is palindromic in nature, making its poignant use in both the opening and closing scenes of the film particularly fitting, given the emotional resonance of those moments. That wraps up our journey into the making of Arrival. From groundbreaking linguistics to stunning visual effects, it's clear that the film's depth goes beyond what we see on screen. If you enjoyed these behind-the-scenes insights, be sure to like the video and subscribe for more fascinating facts about your favorite movies. Let us know in the comments which fact amazed you the most. Thanks for watching.